Welcome everyone, Grand Gnosis Master Dr. Thor Templar here, and more information on alleged Satanists and left-hand path practitioners. You know, I'm always amazed as how these people will not come out and state exactly what they're involved in, and like skirt issues, they like to, in general, try and trick people. This is very typical of so many different organizations out there, and particularly magical organizations. This has always been the case with certain groups that try and lure you in and then try and change things around. And this is been one of the major practices of the OTO, which is a Crowleyite organization based on his philosophies, who's have this basically highest level in their organization is the homosexual magic, which is the highest level, which of course Aleister Crowley was a homosexual and that was his preference. But and there's, you know, whatever turns your button, I have not any problem with, but don't hide anything from me. And this is very typical of so many organizations. And this is typical of all the Satanists, people who've hidden behind where their real affiliations are, directly and indirectly. People like Edred Flowers, who's been a major contributor to and part of the Temple of Set, which is Set is Satan of, they were Church of Satan members for a long time until they broke away from Anton LaVey. So, you know, don't try and trick us. Don't call yourself Odinists. Don't call yourself chaos magicians. Look, this is all Satanism, baby, and you're not fooling anybody. But they put on little radio shows and tend to get away with things. One of the most noted one is Gordon White, otherwise known as Rune Soup. Well, it's interesting of his little psychobabble and how he seems to be buddies with Richard Doland and other people who want to look the other way, are such, they don't even do any research on people they get involved with, love to be on their shows and promote themselves to make a few bucks off of the pain and suffering of others, is what it really comes down to. Gordon White is another one of those chaos musicians, otherwise known as basically, chaos magic is just one of the many legs of Satanism. And of course, we can further connect him with all his publishing press, Scarlet Imprint, which is a left-hand path publisher in the majority of it. And the people that they publish all seem to have very strong, or at least most of them, have very strong satanic contacts. So here we go again, and their books they publish all tend to be very dark in nature. They publish one of the well-known organized criminals who is running lots of different occult and pressuring different occult contacts throughout the United States. What an interesting connection that is. Thanks for publishing them, Scarlet. Of course, you got to remember the founders of Scarlet Press have been around the left-hand path convention circuit. They spoke at the Flambeau Noir International Left-Hand Conference in 2018. They were keynote speakers, and isn't that very interesting as well? Well, I mean, that pretty much puts out there who you are. If you're going to go and talk at conferences that are dedicated to a particular type, well, that's what you are. If I went around to KKK meetings or Nazis or whatever you want to do, born-again Christian events, would you say I was just visiting? Well, these aren't. You got to remember that these people are involved in this. This is what they do, and it should be well aware to the occult community. When you get involved with these people, that's what you're supporting. Plain and simple. And people that hide behind this in their own little way is pretty pathetic. And of course, Gordon White is one of those. So his book is a left-hand path book. And there's no way to say that it isn't, because that's what all chaos magic is. He's published by a press that most of their authors are satanic in one way or another, and of course they are the keynote speakers at the Left Hand Path conference. So what are we to make of all this? Well, it's pretty obvious what's going on there. And The problem with this is I'm assuming that everything that they are involved with, or every person, is putting the stink of that on them. So, and it all deals with this. I mean, if you look up the Scarlet imprint press, and put in left-hand path, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of links. So, I mean, this is the very typical thing that you find of where these people hide out. Now, Scarlet imprint is one of those shrouded in mystery how they even get their financing. I'm assuming it's all self-financed by these, but they're connected to criminal organizations or criminals, and you have to wonder what's going on there if you're going to publish convicted felons that were involved with violent crimes, violent gang crime, and so forth. Well, what are all these other people, and what kind of influences are there, and where is the money coming from to make these special editions? They make beautiful books. I always like to call them, turds wrapped up in gold foil. So the whole idea is that, like with anything, you either like a book or not, but, everyone here are well known, or at least most of them are well known, authors or people involved in the actual satanic movements, like Carl Abramson. And this is a well known, and there's so many other ones listed on there, but I don't know if I really want to go further into that. But I'm sure that everyone that's being published here, like Gordon White, is well aware of what's being published and what's there. I mean, to think that he is anything other than a chaos magician, left-hand path Satanist is all the same thing. So these people are occupied in this dark world. God knows what they're really doing in terms of the bigger movements out there, what these individuals do, who knows? But they draw people in, and then people support them directly or indirectly on what they're doing. And, if you're not a good enough researcher to know where your information is coming from, especially if you consider yourself a whistle-type blower like Richard Dolan, well, there's some real problems. If you don't know who this guy is and what the problem is, Richard, then you really have problems. So I don't believe anything you say. I believe that you, in my opinion, I allege that you're a government implant working for the satanic government. So this is how these things all work out. But here we go again. The facts are pretty much out there, people. It's easy to find out. Plain and simple, Gordon White is involved with a whole bunch of very dark magic people. His little goofy little show is trying to hide this so he can make money off of his books that he and the other things that he does. And, it's always amazing. I find that these people seem to have plenty of money to live in farms and do other things. And where does it all come from? Very interesting. So, everyone should go to the Scarlet imprint press and look around. But the whole idea is that you need to then punch in left-hand path and what's have you. You'll find out that the main founders of this organization are plain and simple major practitioners of the left-hand path and go to all the conventions and are keynote speakers. So this is on the web, people. This is nothing that I'm making up. Everything here can be verified when I'm speaking about by just going to places and doing a little very simple research. Of course, they're very careful not to use that terminology on their imprint page, but I mean, it's pretty obvious when you see. I mean, the book they published was some demonic spirit. Their first book, The Red Goddess, is quite obvious there. And somebody else there, and all of these people can be looked into, and I'm sure ultimately we'll find out they have some dark connections. But, do you want to be hooked up to these kind of people? Do you want to do their magic, which you kind of combine and take on their energy? Do you want to be putting money in the pockets of people that have a destructive energy? And this goes for everybody. I don't support negative politicians, groups, doctors, lawyers, police, military. They're all negative, rotten organizations, including the Red Cross, who takes lots of money for management and gives out a mediocre, as far as I'm concerned, amount to whatever cause it is. So, and I don't support people who are left-hand path negative people who are possibly involved in all sorts of negative practices. And of course, why would they care? I mean, the picture of the red goddess has a blood cup there that she's going to drink from. Blood of whom? Who is this? Animals, children, others? So, certainly that's not what occultism is all about, even though there's been evil always around and people going down these paths. And of course, they really have achieved very little. I mean, all the major Satanists out there have all been utter and complete failures, from Anton LaVey to the Temple of Set and others, who've really never done anything. Tiny little organizations, goofy little books, and what have they really done? I mean, the head of the Temple of Set made all his money from a rich mommy, and the government, of course, which it always seems to be the government, just like other Satanists who seem to work for the government, who's happy to have these kind of people there. It's amazing how so many people can be in so many governmental spots that everyone knows they're Satanists and they still. But here we go again. So be on the lookout, people. Here's another trap. Don't support these negative people. Go out and find better ways and better paths and more positive energy. Remember, when you use a book from anyone who is on the negative path, you're embracing their energy. You're opening up a door. That's what happens. You're following some very intimate instructions from anybody who teaches you magic, and you better know exactly where that's coming from. And certainly we know where most of this is, and it doesn't take much research. But, here's another press that kind of hides behind their turds wrapped in gold, and you need to be buyer beware.